Hi everybody, this is Shawna Odette from the Flying Cat Academy. Welcome to lesson number 26. In this lesson, we will introduce the student to three concepts: base, prefix, and suffix. Let's set up the table. You'll need your top 160 sight word list, the sight word study method instruction sheet, the card pack on which the student's currently working, some blank cards for introducing new sight words, a highlighter, markers, and some pencils. For the short vowel drill, you'll need the teacher instruction sheet, the keyword pictures, and the keyword sentence. The phonemic awareness drill requires the teacher instruction sheet and the colored tiles for the student. Then we've got the visual drill and the auditory drill and the card pack on which the student is currently working. Remember that you're taking out the cards as the student has mastered them. Then we have the syllable card drill. You have to cut this one out in advance. You can see that I've started using a different colored paper for my second syllable, so it's easy to put on the table and easy to identify for the student. And then we've got our magnetic letter tile drills for reading and for spelling, which require the cookie sheet with the letter tiles spread in a rainbow shape. Then we need the syllable pounding instruction sheet, the kinesthetic discovery sheet, but we won't be introducing any new grapheme phoneme relationships today since we have some new content. And we'll have the sheets for the lesson, including the single word sheet, the story, and the sentences for the writing section of the lesson. Then in the new content portion of the lesson, we'll be introducing base, prefix, and suffix, and you'll need to cut out these cards in advance. I like to use different colored paper for that. And then we'll have a drill to remind the student of the sounds of S. Begin with the sight word study method. Student, take out your card pack with your words on which you're currently working. You will read through each card, and when you get one correct, you will put a check mark in the corner of the index card. Then hand the card pack to your teacher, and it's your teacher's turn to read. Your teacher will read each word, and you will write them down. When you get a word correct, in the other corner of the index card, you can give a check for the ones that are written correctly. When you're finished, talk about which of those words are mastered, and if you think that some of them are, you can take those away from the card pack. Now there's space in your pack, so if there's time, you and your teacher can introduce a new sight word. It's time for the short vowel drill, so take out your keyword pictures and your keyword sentence. You'll trace each keyword, saying the key word apple, and then underline it and say the sound that the vowel makes, ah. Do that as many times as your teacher deems necessary, and then say the keywords, that sentence, by stretching out those vowel sounds. We're going to do the phonemic awareness drill, so you'll need your colored tiles for this one. I'm going to tell you that your word is mud. Can you repeat that word? All right, let's use mud in a sentence. I might say, my dog jumped in the mud. What would you say? Now I'd like you to build that word mud with the colored tiles. Then tap it and say it. Okay, find the in mud. Can you touch it? Now change the into an ah. What's your new word? Tap it and say it. Did you get mod? If you did, that's right. All right, let's take a new tile, a new color, and call it N. You're going to put it into mod right before the D. What's your new word? Tap it and say it. Did you get mond? If you did, that's correct, not a real word. All right, let's do another nonsense word. Find the ah in mond. Are you touching it? Now change the ah into an ah. What's your new word? Did you get mand? If you did, that's right. Let's turn it into a real word now. Find the in mand and change the into an o. What's your new word? Did you get land? If you did, that's correct. Let's do one more. Find the ah in land and change it into an eh. Now tap it and say it. Did you get lend? If you did, that's right. Okay, great work. You can put your tiles away now. Let's do the visual card drill. In this one, the teacher flashes the card to the student and the student says the sound of the card. So student, what's this one? Did you say X? That's the K sound and the S sound. X. If you did, that's correct. Teacher, you can do about 6 to 8 flashcards and then come back to me. Let's do the auditory drill. We'll need the card pack again for this one. The teacher says, your sound is old. Can you repeat that sound? Now I'd like you to write down the letters for old. When you finish, underline it and say the sound again. And then you can check your work. How did you do? Teacher, do this drill for 6 to 8 different cards and then come back to me. It's time for the syllable card drill. Your teacher has this one set up on the table for you. You'll read down all the syllables in column number 1, and then down all the syllables, which happen to be words today, in column number 2, and then you'll read across each row. That's going to make some nonsense words. Then it's your turn to have some fun by unscrambling. You can change around the syllables in column number 2 so that they match up with different ones in column number 1. And then you'll get real words. Teacher, remember that you want to be discussing the meanings and having the student put some of these words into sentences as you're going along. In the last lesson, you learned about the 2 sounds of S. Do you remember what the 2 sounds of S are? Can you tell your teacher what they are? The 2 sounds of S are S as in snake and Z as in dog. Z. Do you hear it? There's a way that we can tell whether the S is going to make the S sound, which is the motor off sound, or the Z sound, which is the motor on sound. In the word cat, this was our example from yesterday, we talked about how if you want to understand what the S will do, you just look at what happens right before it. We say, is T a motor on sound or motor off sound? And then you touch your throat and you figure it out. T, t. So that one's just a pop of air, so that's a motor off sound. So we're just going to keep the motor off and we'll say the motor off sound of S. And that's why it sounds like S, cats. But if we had a consonant right before the S that was a motor on sound, like B, then we're going to keep the motor on and the S will make the Z sound. So this word is cabs. Okay, let's practice the 2 different sounds of S. Practice identifying the 2 different sounds of S by doing a quick sort. The teacher has this one cut out and ready for you on the table. In lesson number 25, we talked about the reason that we have the S as a suffix. We said that when you closed your eyes and you saw cat, you would only see one cat. But when we put an S on that word, cats, then when you close your eyes, you can imagine multiple cats. There's another way that we use S as well. So in this word, can you read that word? Tap it and say it. That word is stop. And what does stop mean? Have a quick discussion with your teacher about the meaning of stop. Okay, and I could put it in a sentence. I could say, I will stop the car. So in English, we have, this is an action word. It's something that's happening, right? If I put an S on it, then this is how I would say the word if I'm saying he stops the car. I stop the car. He stops it. Or she stops it. So that's just something I wanted to note out, that there's multiple ways that S is used. It's not always just for saying that there's more than one of something. The word stops has 2 parts. We have one part that holds the main meaning of the word and one part that we add on to add extra meaning. Which part do you think is the main meaning of the word stops? Is it stop or the S? If you said stop, that's right. That's the main meaning of this word. We call that the base. Let's look at a base. Here's one. Can you read this word? Tap it and say it. Did you get trust? If you did, that's right. What does trust mean? I think of it as I know I can count on someone or something. I can trust it. If I take a suffix and end it onto the base, what do I have now? Can you read that word? We know that it will be a motor off sound of S because it's preceded by a T, and the T is a motor off sound. That word is truss. So then you ask yourself, is this an example where the suffix S is acting as something that makes it more than one? Or is it one where we are making it so that we can form the verb properly with different things? I could say, he trusts you. In that case, we're working with a verb, an action word. Or I could say, I have set up multiple trusts for my child. That's something you can do at the bank. So that could be in either way. I want you to also know that you can add things onto the front of a word. When we add something onto the front, we call that this one a prefix. Pre means before, and we're fixing it onto the base. So now we've got 3 separate types of syllables here. Do you remember what we call the main meaning? The syllable that holds the main meaning? That was called the base. Can you say base? I think of that as like the base of a pyramid. It's the most important thing, the thing that stabilizes everything else and keeps it. It's the most important part, the base. And the part that we put on the front, pre meaning before, and fix meaning we're going to fix it on, so there's the prefix. And this one is at the end, it's a suffix. There's some very common ones that are prefixes, and you're going to get to know them as we're doing different drills. So teacher, what I'd like you to do is you have the drill set up on the table, and I'd like you to just talk with the student and move the different cards around to make prefixes that add on to the different bases. One concept that we want to make sure that's happening is as you're working with the different cards, on the back, I like to put the meaning of the card. So you'll be talking about how, for example, rupt means to break. And so if I add the prefix dis onto rupt, what does that mean? So teacher, you'll talk about the meaning of dis, talk about the meaning of rupt. And the last concept to talk about is how some bases are words. That's a syllable, that's a word, isn't it? And then some, this syllable rupt is not a word on its own. We would have to add the prefix dis to make disrupt. But rupt is not a word on its own. So we call this one a bound base. And gust is free to be its own word, so we call it a free base. Okay, so right now, work through the drill and you're just moving them around and talking about how the meaning changes when you add dis to the different bases. And then add the suffix s to the different prefix and base combinations and discuss them. Let's do the magnetic letter tile drill. Student, your sound is t. Can you repeat that sound? Now find the correct tile and pull it to the middle. The next sound is er. Can you repeat that sound? Now find the correct tile and pull it to the middle. Your next sound is Can you repeat that sound? Now find the correct tile and pull it to the middle. S. Can you repeat that sound? Find the correct tile and pull it to the middle. The last sound is T. Can you repeat that sound? Now find the correct tile and pull it to the middle. Tap each sound and say each sound, and then underline it and say the whole word. Did you get trust? If you did, that's right. Now put your tiles away and get ready for your next word. Your first sound is G. Can you repeat that sound? Find the correct tile and pull it to the middle. Your next sound is Can you repeat that sound? Now find the correct tile and pull it to the middle. Your next sound is S. Can you repeat that sound? Find the correct tile and pull it to the middle. T. Can you repeat that sound? Find the correct tile and pull it to the middle. And S. Can you repeat that sound? Find the correct tile and pull it to the middle. Now tap it and say it. What do you have? Did you say Gus? If you did, that's right. There were many gusts of wind, I might say. Okay, it's time to read the individual word list, and when you're done that, you can read the story. Let's do the magnetic letter tile drill for spelling. Today, we're going to use a 2-syllable word. So in order to spell this, you have to hear this in parts. So remember, you can break it apart by either pounding it out or feeling it as you say it. Think of this one. Disrupts. Can you say that word? You might say, he disrupts the class. So how many syllables are there in disrupts? Did you say 2? If you did, that's right. So first try to spell the first syllable. Dis. What's the first sound that you hear in dis? Find the correct tile and pull it to the middle. What's the second sound that you hear in dis? Find the correct tile and pull it to the middle. And what's the last sound that you hear in dis? Find the correct tile and pull it to the middle. Now let's work on syllable number 2. In disrupts. Rups. What's the first sound that you hear in rups? Find the correct tile and pull it to the middle. And what's the second sound that you hear in rups? Find the correct tile and pull it to the middle. What is the next sound that you hear in rups? Find the correct tile and pull it to the middle. And what is the last sound that you hear in rups? Find the correct tile and pull it to the middle. Tap it and say it. Great work. Teacher, if there's time, you can do another word. And if not, then we'll just carry on. We're going to do some tapping and some tracing. Student, I'd like you to tap out the word guns, as in he was holding 2 guns. So tap it out and say the sounds as you tap it. Grab the word and pull it across and say the whole word. And then you're going to write it down on your lined paper. Teacher, you can check the work. And for the next one, I'd like you to trace it. You can trace it on your hand, your arm, your leg, whatever you're thinking. And your word is hands. I have 2 hands. Trace it out, saying the sounds, and then write it down. Teacher can check your work. And teacher, if you have time, you can do a third word there. If not, we'll just carry on. And you are going to read the 3 sentences to the student and let the student choose the 2 that will be written. And after a sentence gets written, I'd like you to use CHOPS, student, to check the work. In today's lesson, we were reviewing the 2 sounds of S. Do you remember what the 2 sounds of S are? Tell your teacher those sounds now. And in the new content portion of the lesson, we learned about a base, a prefix, and a suffix. These new words. Can you say those words with me? Base, prefix, and suffix. This one is a base. Can you read this word? It's not a word on its own, actually. It's just a syllable. Tract. And tract means to draw, which is so interesting. It just shows you, these are like, makes you really realize words are not random. There's so much meaning in even the parts of the word. So if I was going to add this card onto it, is this card, if I'm adding it onto the front of tract, is this one a prefix or a suffix? If you said prefix, you're correct. Pre means before, and I'm going to fix it onto the word. That's why we say prefix. So what is my new word when I have this prefix and this base together? Distract. Distract. And you know, when you distract someone, you're pulling their attention away. And so isn't it interesting that, you know, dis means away and tract means to draw. So literally you're drawing away when you distract, drawing the attention away from what's going on. And I could add a suffix if I wanted. A suffix is an ending that we add on to the base. So that word would be, start with my microphone there, distracts. He distracts her. So interesting. Great job today. That's the end of lesson number 26. This is Shawna Odette from the Flying Cat Academy.